Live here, James Robert Elliott and Gary L. Smiles, certified personal trainer. He's a mentor, he's a speaker, he's a motivator, he's an inspirer. I'm super pumped to have him on today. Him and I were talking a few weeks ago, and just we're so aligned on so many of the things we talk about, on things I talk about. I had to have him on the podcast, and really wanted to have him here. So again, Gary L. Smiles, welcome. We're going to be talking today about if you can focus, you can finish your mission, your purpose, your work, whatever it is you need. Welcome, Gary, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for reaching out, man. Thank you for this time. I'm grateful, man.
My pleasure, man. It's good to have you here. Good to have you. And the world's become an interesting place lately. Even more noise than usual in the world and the environment and marketing media. Even more confusion and more divide. Whatever it is, whether it's for against something, for against vaccines, whatever it is. We have tornadoes and hurricanes all over the place now. We have problems in the Middle East, of course, too. The world's becoming a very interesting place, and I think you have a lot of great guidance to give. So we'll jump into it right away. What do you find, I guess, first part of my question, throws people off their mission, their purpose, their work they want to do? And part B to the question, how can people focus? What throws them off the focus? And then how can people focus? Because you're an amazing mentor and a speaker, and I loved a lot of things we're talking about. So what do you think? What do you think?
I think one of the first things that really gets people is I live in New York, so I'm a New York City guy. So in this big city called New York, we are trying to do too many things at the same time. There's a great book that it's on my queue, but just the title alone, The Myth of Multitasking. It's one of those things where as New Yorkers, we pride ourselves on doing many things, juggling multiple balls. But the reality is when you're doing so much, you're not really doing anything with excellence. So I think there's this unhealthy relationship with being busy that people don't get an opportunity to be great at anything or really to focus in because they're doing too much. I think once people start to take a little bit of food off that plate, they will find that they can actually do more than they can be more effective at what they're doing if they do less. And I think that's one of the biggest things is like we feel like this need to say yes to everything. But a lot of times the answer is no. And it's not because you're not capable or that the particular thing that you're being asked to is not good. It's just it's not right now. It's not in alignment with what you really want to do. And it's okay to say no. So I think that's the first
boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, having boundaries, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the first thing, like saying no to certain things. And to your second point is how. I think especially in big cities like this, you have to be super intentional about being alone. And there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Two different things, right? Mm-hmm. Being alone is like just this intentionality of like, you know what? Give me a minute. I need to think about this. I need to dwell on this a little bit. And I think that will help us make better decisions because if you're constantly being inundated by media, if you're constantly being inundated by your phone, if you're constantly being inundated with information from family and friends, when do you actually know what you think?
And can you think, to your point? Because you're not present, you're not thinking, and you're like, to your point, you're multitasking. Whatever it is you're doing while you're on your phone or paying attention to your phone or media or messages, to your point, you're still you're ding, 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 ding. You're still multitasking and not being effective as you could be. Right on.
Right.
I think that's a good point and something to be aware of because, and I guess let's talk about what's at stake for people. I think that what really is at stake is a lack of performance, a lack of efficiency, or a lack of effectiveness. Things take longer. They're not as good, and they're harder. Or again, you're just not effective. And think about it as well as I tell people, you want an expert. Do you want to hire a person who is an expert and on and effective, or you don't want to hire someone that's ineffective? Whether it's pretend you're a manager, if you're not, or a director, or pretend you're a business owner, or pretend you're someone that wants some kind of service. Do you want to hire someone that either is distracted, is multitasked, don't know who they are, what they think, and isn't really aligned? You use that word, I love alignment, on who they are, what they can do for you. You want to have someone that does things, or do you want to have someone who is a laser focused expert in whatever, let's say brain surgery? Do you really want someone doing brain surgery on you that's not focused or distracted or a generalist, or do you want an expert? And that's a bit of an extreme example, but I think you have a valid point, because people want experts, right? People want, efficiency, effectiveness, and a lot of times we're not getting that. And if you can show that you can create effectiveness and efficiency and focus in yourself, your work, everything you do, I think people will hire you over other people, work with you, choose you, whatever they're choosing you for over other people, really.
For sure. And it's funny you say that. So in most of my public speaking events, I normally use, I'm a huge basketball fan. Basketball and football, my two favorite sports. And I use this analogy, this player often, and he's one of many players. I use the example of JJ Redick, right?
Sure.
JJ Redick just retired. He just announced his retirement, but there's a period in time where JJ Redick, his job was to like, hey man, I need you to shoot a three. Like if you can hit a three, when we need you to hit a three, all the money we gave you is worth it. Anything else outside of that is a bonus. It's a plus, not a must. But if you can do what we asked you and what we signed you to do, we won. It's a win. And I think I use that example is because when you specialize, or if you can become proficient in something or some things, you will always have opportunities, because people want to hire the proficient. People want people who solve problems. Especially when it comes to like you use brain surgery, heart surgery. We pay specialists across the board. Specialists always get compensated for their expertise, because unlike their counterparts, they have something and they've invested the time and also their time, talent, and treasure to become efficient and proficient. Sure. So that's why we pay them.
It's funny. I was talking to a colleague today on a mastermind call, and he was even saying, if you're a master, avoid worrying about the money. The money will come. The money will follow. Focus on being a master. And I'll caveat that and say that does not mean perfect, and it does not mean you have to know everything, because that's impossible. Right. However, focus on mastery of whatever it is you do. And to your point, whether it's a brain surgeon or heart surgeon, whether I'm hiring a virtual assistant or a salesperson, or whether, I don't know, IBM or Apple or whatever is hiring a whoever, do you think they're going to hire someone who is a generalist, or who multitasks, or who is an expert and is awesome at this thing, right? And focus, an expert, proficient, that's who they want to hire. That's who they want. And I think so many people, it's in communicating, whether it's a job, being hired, a prospect, whatever, they're pitching themselves, whatever it is, being hired at a company, and people talk about too much. And it's like, well, I can do all these great things, which is great, and showcase your skills. Yes. You also want to show, though, how you are. This is what I'm an expert in. Are you looking for an expert, someone proficient and efficient? I like that saying, proficient and efficient, and focused, or someone that is okay, at a number of things. There's a good book that's called From Good to Great, and being good isn't good enough anymore, because there's so much competition out there, and whether it's onshore, whether it's offshore, overseas, or whatever. There's a lot of competition. Yeah.
For sure.
What do you think, and what do you see that gets into people's way from really living, really thriving? What gets in their way, whether it's work or play? What gets into people's way, Gary?
I think for many of us, we are living lives that were given to us, and I'll elaborate on that. So. In some cultures, you're either a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure, right? Right. And we as individuals have so much variety in our skill sets and our interests, and we're all so unique. And when someone gives you a life to live, typically many of us find ourselves years later or immediately like saddened and miserable by that, because we weren't created to be given lives. We were created to discover the life that we were supposed to live based on our unique capacities, right? So when someone gives you a life, or we're being told what we should like or how this story should end, that's a lot of times, then we have to now find a way to unlearn that, to really understand. So we spend time learning what I know that's not the life I wanted. So now, what is the life I want? So that's a journey in itself, which
True.
goes into a deeper thing.
And even letting go of the grief, the guilt, the anger, the whatever, from when you realize, holy crap, I'm not even living my own life. I'm living my parents' or my culture, my society's life. I saw a funny meme the other day, and it was a certain ethnicity, and it was a mom with her arms crossed like this, and at the top it says, "We want you to be happy," and at the bottom it says, "And also a doctor."
Right.
But it's so funny, but it's so true. And I think a lot of people, you're right, they realize, oh my God, this is not what I want. I'm either rich or not, but they're like, they're not happy and they're miserable, or they're with someone they don't want to be, or they have a house or in a place or a job they don't want. And that's no way to live life. And I really think you can make great money doing anything. People are like, oh, I have to do this or this to support my living and make great money. And no, you can make great money. I know someone who makes millions of dollars, and he has a factory that prints the little plastic cups that you put your sauce in at McDonald's. He makes millions of dollars doing that. And he loves having his business, his relationship with his customers. It's his passion. And you can make I have a friend. All his company does is drills holes in the ground. That's all they do. And he recently sold it for $150 million. And all they do is drill holes in the ground. Now they're big holes for big foundations for big buildings, but really that's all he does. He drills holes in the ground. So people, I think we get in our own way of, I can't make money at that, or that's not going to please the family or make my mom and dad happy. Well, remember, you need to be happy first. And plus, when you're successful, I guarantee you, you'll make your mom and dad happy, and they will brag about you, right? Because often they force us into these jobs or lives to have something to brag about to their friends. But trust me, when you're happy and successful, they'll have plenty to brag about. Because otherwise, what's the cost of not living your life and living who you want to be? Taking action, going for that job or going for that business or starting something or an amazing side hustle.
Yes.
Right. And it's an amazing thing, right? People, like you said, seem to get in our way a lot, right? I did too at first.
Yeah,
and there's a huge
it's big, right? Yeah, and sometimes you got to discover you in your own way, because like a lot of times, if we're honest, we spend a lot of time saying or blaming outside because that's easier. Like it's a lot easier to blame other people for why we don't achieve what we achieve or go where we want to go. And there's a real reality to, like, people do cause us harm, people do cause us pain, and people can uproot and disrupt your life, whether it be parents, relationships. So we do influence each other for the good or the bad. But ultimately, there has to be like a resolution made that you're going to architect your life. And that's the work, right? And that's where the work begins. Because as much as so-and-so hurt you badly, deeply, if you live long enough, you're going to get your heart broken. You're going to be disappointed.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you then get through that, right? And get the resources you need to combat that and to patch up and to sew up so that you can go back out there and do what you're supposed to do.
And that's the thing too. And get rid of the grief or guilt or failure. Oh my God, I haven't been living my own life. Realize it, to your point, and the anger, and just let it go. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck and just angry and frustrated, which is it doesn't help anyone. But you're right, like, to live your actual life. And I think I'd love your thoughts on this. I think that some of the reasons people are not focused and they're on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever when they're supposed to be working, I think because there is some kind of misalignment. There's not a true alignment, or they're not doing what they want. When I do something exciting, I don't know what everyone out there, or yourself, if I do something that I'm excited and passionate, I don't get distracted. There is not really much distraction because I'm laser focused, I'm obsessed, and I'm excited, I'm passionate about it. When I teach I had my mastermind call earlier today that I do with my graduates, and I don't get distracted during that. I'm on during that call. And so I think, again, maybe not all distractions or all lack of focus is maybe because people aren't doing what they want. But any thoughts on that? Have you seen that in your industry, in your world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen it in my own life, right? I love wrestling, right? I love professional wrestling. And the thing about distractions is a lot of times good things are distractions, right? Good things can be distractions. So a distraction is defined as anything that gets in the way of right? Anything, good or bad. So it's sometimes easier to point out the bad distractions, but how
Sure.
about the good things, right? Good things can be a distraction to great things if you allow them to be, right? So is watching YouTube wrestling videos a bad thing? No, but if you watch it for 8 hours and you didn't return any phone calls or any emails, it's not in alignment and it's not going to help you progress towards that goal that you said you wanted. So that's the thing about distractions. They come in many forms. And we
Fair.
have to be very self-aware and very like intentional, like, whoa, okay, like this is a good thing that sorry, but anything done in excess can harm us.
That's exactly it. And that you're exactly right. Anything in excess can harm us and often does. So any other tools for focus? And I mean, a lot of times I think people are just overworked and not having any fun. And of course you're going to get distracted. And I mean, your brain, your inner child, your unconscious mind, it likes to have fun. I mean, you can't work all the time because it's gonna rebel and be like, no, you're sick today. No, you don't want to work or you're procrastinating. And that's the thing. I think it's a sign we need a break and to take a conscious break versus being distracted and half on, half off for hours.
Yep.
No, go take a half hour, hour and a half, whatever you need. Take it off and come back refreshed. And if you want to look at YouTube videos for the hour, then do it. But be off versus multitasking. I mean, any suggestions as well on how people can really stay focused, keep their eye on the prize?
Accountability, that's one. Accountability. I know we stray away from accountability because it's a part of our nature to not be told.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell me what to do. Like we've been fighting against that from the time even before we can verbalize, don't tell me what to do. We do things like,
That's right.
Like we do things even as children to let people know that we don't want to do what you want me to do. But the thing about being an adult is knowing that there are times where there's things you have to do in order to do what you want to do. And we live in a community. Like humans are social creatures, right? We don't have the answers to everything. We were designed to work in community, and we don't have all the keys to every door. So I can't just operate on my time only because that affects James, right? So learning how to take that natural independence and then couple that with interdependence, right? Which is one of the biggest concepts from Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, right? Stephen
Right
Covey
on.
talks about that, right? That going from that independence to interdependence.
Exactly.
So accountability is definitely one thing, and being just as intentional about your work as you are about your play. Being intentional about it. You like what you like, right? You like what you like, and spend some time doing that. This way, you won't sabotage what you have to do because you never do what you want to do.
And that's exactly it. I think that's where a lot of self-sabotage comes because either, yes, you're not doing what you want to do, or you refuse to let yourself, play or have fun, so to speak, however that means to you. And yeah, of course, we're going to get distracted if we're not working or not enough breaks, take time off. I think companies that give employees more vacation time versus less are very smart because they get it. If
Right.
we only have so much. If you expect people to give and give, and you only give them 2 or 3 weeks off a year, you don't have productive employees, and I think that's something that some companies are starting to really get. If you only have a couple weeks, 2, 3 weeks off, an entire year, are you kidding me?
Right.
In 12 months, you have 2, 3 weeks off. You're working with employees that are burnt out and they're not creative, not efficient, not effective. They're distracted, they're defocused. Give people the time they need to rest, and you become, and I find that with myself too, you're more effective. I took a nice 2 weeks off in the summer, and oh my gosh, am I ever on and just boom, 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 getting stuff done. And I'm like, I'll run out of things to do. And I'm like, it's only like 3 o'clock or it's only 4 o'clock. I'm like, I'm used to working till like 6, 7, 8. And it's like, what do I got to do something? And they're like, wait, no, I can relax because I'm effective and got my stuff done. Yeah, right on. Very cool. Any last thoughts and tips in terms of people living their own life, being focused? Because, like you said, if you can focus, you can finish. If you can't focus, and then how do you finish anything? And I like your thoughts on play and enjoying and breaks and time off. Any other thoughts for people on either focusing, that way they can achieve their purpose and mission, or really actually living, which I think play and enjoying and time off is a big part of it, and being intentional with your time. Any other thoughts though, Gary?
I think something that's helpful is turn your phone off every now and then, like off, power down, turn it off. Um, and I know for the parents of the world, they're like, "Oh, I can't turn my phone off." Like, I get it, right? You know, especially kids are back in school in the U.S., so you know you can't turn your phone off necessarily. But if you could probably turn your phone off more often than you allow you to, because I'm old
I
enough to
think so.
understand a world where we didn't have cell phones and we lived pretty good. Like none of
We
us
were okay.
I can now come back and tell you the story that we lived without cell phones because we did
That's right.
okay. We found ways to think, you know, like we had payphones, right? You had payphones, but you ultimately had to like we went from being not as connected to overly connected, and now we don't know how to disconnect, right? And
Fair
it's
enough. Fair enough.
that's the challenge now. It's like you can disconnect, like, and you need to disconnect because
Yep.
in
Yep.
that disconnection you can now get back to ground, you know, ground level to baseline if you can disconnect for a little bit. So I think that's a huge one too.
It's huge. Agreed. Agreed. Cool. Any last thoughts? I have Gary's information up here as well. What is your favorite thing? Because you do a lot of really cool things. You do mind and body, which is awesome. You're a personal trainer, but also a personal trainer for the mind, if you will, as well. And you're a speaker. What is one of your biggest tips do you give to people? The biggest, most awesome tip for either for this or for in general, how to really thrive in their life? What's a really awesome tip you can give people to really thrive?
Like, so for me it's multiple things, right? So a lot of like, and I always say this in my public speaking events, a lot of my the way I view the world, a lot of my paradigm is influenced by my faith, right? So like a lot of it, most of it, right, all of
Cool.
it is
Cool.
influenced by my faith.
Hmm.
Because with, you know, without God, for me, you know, I wouldn't be here right now because it's through that where I've had to, you know, it's given me an opportunity to have a healthy sense of self.
Hmm.
So and know that I'm not as bad as I think I am, but you're not as great
None
as
of
you
us
think
are.
you are, right? So it's like this
Fair.
constant like pointing you to the middle, like, you know, some of us are really hard on ourselves, and that's not necessary. And
Yeah.
then sometimes we think too highly of ourselves, and that's a little too much. So it's like, how do you, you know, how do you find that place in space to be able to recognize your gifts and talents, right? To be objective, like, yes, I am really good at this because I put the work in it and I match talent and effort, right? But then at the same time, that I still got a long way to go, and being okay with that, and then being able to have compassion for people, you know. So that's a big part of it. So that's a big part of it for me.
I like that a lot because, and you're right, no matter what your faith is or your higher purpose or your spirituality, I think we need something, some kind of higher purpose because, otherwise we were in this vacuum or this black hole. Like life can be a black hole and it can suck your soul, especially if you focus on the crap in life because there's a lot of it, but there's a lot of great stuff in life too. So to your point, what is your higher purpose? What is your higher self, if you will, but what is your higher purpose? What do you want in the world? How can you make a big difference and make an impact in the world, however you do it? And again, what is your inspiration, whether it is faith or spirituality or helping people or teaching people, leaving a legacy, helping people less fortunate? We all have it. And I think we all need to do some form of that, making an impact and leaving a legacy and making the world a better place to be really fulfilled. So I think that ties out the last thoughts of our talk really well today. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Amazing, amazing. So put Gary's information up here if you want to talk, you want to learn more, follow him on Instagram as well. And it's been a pleasure having you, Gary. Thank you very much. And I appreciate your time today.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Likewise. My pleasure, brother. Likewise, likewise.